Happy Friday. Welcome to the 15-Minute Rev. I'm Dr. Missy Hood. Hope you guys have had a great week and getting ready for your Friday. Let me get this turned down here real quick so we can get into our conversation. Anyway, I hope you guys have had a good week. I'm Dr. Missy Hood and welcome to the 15-Minute Rev. Getting you started for your weekend. I hope everything's going well for you guys this week, and God's got another word, another hard word. It seems like that's the story of my life these days. But I've really sensed that God is also trying to get the body realigned, like majorly realigned right now, and getting them out of their flesh and getting you guys into his best to really where you can have a holy future, a good future, aligned with God, aligned with heaven, because of watered down Christianity, because of everything you thought was truth and everything that you thought you were walking in, be aligned with him. But oh my goodness. So I'm gonna just jump in. I'm just gonna jump in today again because it's also another hard word day. So anyway, this is what the title is. Okay. It's called Make the Choice, America. The stress of disobeying the king and reality checks. God been giving you a reality check lately? Telling you to check your reality? Because there are such things as holy realities versus demonic realities. And what you think might be truth may not be. And I know that's a hard thing for some people to wrap their head around. And matter of fact, when God started introducing me into that with regard to the level of witchcraft that we're now seeing, do you realize that a lot of witchcraft is based on creating a false illusion around you to get you to buy into unholy things? I'm sorry. But how do they do that? How do they do that? Guys, can you pray against the witchcraft? By the way, thank you so much. But how do they do that? How do these enemies do that to us? Let me just give you a few scenarios. Through media, we've got the false advertisements and the reality that we've had for years around us, where they tried to keep us in a bubble, trying to make us think that things around our world were perfect. They were great, which we know that life's not perfect, but they hid a lot of things from us. They do it as far as creating a false narrative. I wanted you to be pre-programmed that's infiltrated all 7 mountains. Sorry. Pardon me, please. I came in my voice too. But I'm not going to stop talking. I'm going to keep letting it rip, potato chip. But anyway, so they created this bubble reality, this false reality around us, to where even, especially in the church, for the church, because they know that we're a Christian nation, and they knew even back then that if they were going to take over America, that they had to dupe the Christians because they knew that we wouldn't buy into it. They knew that we wouldn't stand for it because we have our own belief system. So what did they do? They started watering down Christianity. But how? How'd they do that? They started lying to you. They started coming in and infiltrating your Christian churches and things like that. And I wasn't raised in church, thank God. Now I'm really thanking God I wasn't raised in church. I listen to Billy Graham on Sundays. But what I have been observing for a very, very long time was an immature people group. And people emotionally immature. Not everybody. There were a lot of good people I met in when I did go to church, God would take me here and there, I think just to let me see the condition of the church and the people. And what I did see was people that acted worse than the people that I knew that didn't go to church. I thought, wow, this is something. This is a sight to be seen. What a hypocrisy. So, I don't have a beef. I'm not trying to pick a fight, but I am trying to bring things to your mind that you might want to consider if you're going to stay stuck in a thing, to make sure that you make sure what you're getting into before you enter your suffering. Okay, there's witchcraft to the max right now. I could care less. I'm doing something right, the Lord says. Just got a prophetic word yesterday. I'm doing something right. Not what I'm doing wrong, I'm doing right. So I'm going to keep telling you the truth. I'm going to keep telling you the truth, and hopefully God will clang it upside your head long enough to get you to listen. But when you hear lies for so long, you really actually start to believe that that's your reality. That's what pre-programming does. And if you know anything about the enemy is the father of lies. And he's beautiful. He does it beautifully. Thank you so much. So When they infiltrated your churches, they infiltrated it with Satanists and witches. They're no dummy. We have Satanists and witches at the top in government. What do you think we're fighting right now within the deep state? That's just retarded. So we have to really consider these things if you want to get free and if you want to get duped from a false reality and start stepping into holy things and really learning about the truth about what God says about himself as the king. So you have a choice, America, to stay in the old or to come into the new. But what that looks like all depends on you spiritually. Because what I think I'm hearing God say is that there are many who have chosen to stay in their old ways instead of getting cleaned up, which would bring them closer to the Ancient of Days. Where many are stuck in the apparatus of death and religion without knowing the Lord or the King. Hence, all their words create are demonic realities. Let me go further into that. Do you know what happens when God poured his spirit out on all flesh? He said that in the word. He said, in the end times, I'm going to pour my spirit out on all flesh. And what happens when he did, because you were born into the earth with giftings on your vessel, pre-programmed or pre-existing. That's how he equipped you in the womb of your mom. And they're irrevocable, is that it ignited his presence on your vessel, ignited the giftings. So it happened on good and evil alike. God's no respecter of persons. What he does for one, he does for all. So what that created then was an arms race, if you will, between the Lord and the devil, the Lord and the devil. And the devil trying to create his army versus God raising up his armies. But God's always the ace in the hole. He's always the most brilliant one, the Ancient of Days. So he's already in our future. He's already got this pre-planned. Nothing surprises him. But what did surprise me, sincerely, 25 years ago, when I saw all this starting to happen within my city and watching people start coming alive in their gifts and starting to be able to operate in the prophetic and operate in all these different miracles, signs, wonders, and miracles, which is really, really cool, by the way. I love it. I participated in it too. But I saw long term where this could take people if they didn't have identity in him and not the gift. So then when I started observing, I've said this many times about how people would begin to abuse their gifts and that because they hadn't gotten cleaned up. I didn't know that then, but I know it now. And for the last 25 years, we've had 25 years to get cleaned up. We get deliverance ministry. We've had deliverance ministers around us. We've had different Cyruses. We've been told about this, but we've treated it like something that's supposed to be hush-hush in the back room of a church. And that's just where the devil wanted it, to leave the church in a lurch. And so I saw 25 years ago how all this could go south real quick, and it did. It sure has. It's gone south because now we have everybody thinking they're everybody else's God and they have the right to be in their business and your business and my business, abusing that gift when only Jesus was supposed to be using it when he showed up on the scene. You're allowed to use your discernment. Pardon me. But it's not my business to be in your business just because I have a gift. Now, if God shows me things, my job is to pray for you. But it's not my business to go and try to lord it over you and try to act like I'm morally superior to you. That's what I see happening in the church. Everybody, all these leaders, all these sheep acting like, well, this is my identity. And bless God, this is my name. You don't know who I am. I don't give a rip who you are. Most likely, neither does God. He's the one that equipped you. He's the one that called you. But if you put your name above his name, then he's got a problem with you. So he's trying to get everything in its rightful place to where you can actually come in alignment with the king, come out of your suffering, so you don't have to go through things that were needless. But many of you think you know more than him, and you made some unholy choices, and now you're not entering in. And all because, guess what? You chose not to get free from you by God, and you're going to continue to abuse those giftings too. Amazing. So, this is what I believe the Lord's saying. Since this test began, all that I've been showing you are the hearts of man. You've seen misalignment. You've seen malice. You've seen vengeance. The most evil side, and all because 3/4 of the church are dwelling where the flesh is. They are not by my side. Because I already knew their hearts before time began. And I knew who would come up and out or who would choose to disagree and stay in stagnancy. Where there was no power, no flow. Where there was nowhere to go. Except where the enemy of their soul had pre-programmed them with. So now, in this season, you're being forced to choose. In this particular season. You want me to go there yet, God? Am I ahead of myself? I will. Yeah, I'll wait. It's down the road. Just hang on. Now in this season, though, we're all being forced to choose. Whose spirit will you follow? Will you get free from you? Or will you stay in the same stuck demonic reality? Just wanting to be entertained or just amused? Because the immature in heart will always want to act like a child. Where the heart of a bride will come into order. She'll come out of the wild. Remember, immature people are usually rebellious people. Just making a point. So you can choose the land to dwell in, which is mine for you. Or you can choose those things that you've been frustrated with for most of your life. That have been imported to you. By the way, by your prior generations. They're called generational cursings or your generational lineage, And through, you can choose the one who has lied to you most of the time and time again, before you chose to abide in me and in heavenly things. But you can't have both, says the Lord. So in this season, yes, you must choose. And you can choose to stay in the truth, or you can go back to your old ways, which are demonic. They're from your generation. They're from the heart of a false king, Satan, the zodiac. We've talked about that here in a few things. But it's the dwelling place he's made within you, within a lot of you, that's caused you so much suffering. Why would you do that? What are you saying? Hey, you're in a test. You're in a trust test. Oh, guess what? I'm going to give you the key. Guess what that is? It's deliverance. Choose me. Frustrates me for you. It's like rocks for brains. Sometimes I have to say it. I have to say it. I am a hard word prophet. I am a truth prophet. It's like the time. Okay, let me just give you an example. This reminds me of the time. Okay, my dad used to have those dearlies. I talk about my dad a lot because my dad was really, really smart man, very analytical strategist, lead strategist in the military. But he liked to go hunt. And so he'd take us to this deer lease out in Blanco, Texas. My whole family would go. And we'd be like great winter nights out there. And you'd drive up and there would be the old little bunkhouse where all the hunters would go. But they had this beautiful, a big living room with this big round circular fireplace in it. And pardon me, my nose itches. But right beside the bunkhouse, or right beside this house, it was a house where everybody went. There was this pasture full of all these bulls, big Bramer bulls. Now, if you know anything about Bramer bulls, you don't jack around with them because they'll attack you, they'll buck you, or gore you to death. So first thing my dad tells us when he drive up there, tells my brother and I, he says, Melissa, don't let me catch you out in that pasture. What does that do to my little immature butt? My little rebellious self? I quickly assessed the situation and I looked at my brother and I said, do you have a red bandana? And he said, what are you thinking, Missy? And I said, do you have a red bandana? Did you bring that red bandana with you? And he did, because he always kept one in his back pocket. And it was usually red or blue. And he said, I do, but you're not going to go out in that pasture. Daddy said not to go out in that pasture. I'm not going to do that. My dad strictly gave me a warning beforehand. If you do this, you might get this. Okay. So I told my brother, we're not going to disobey. Just follow me. So he follows me. My dad had gone to do something else. He follows me, and there's like this fence. And so I stuck the bandana in between the fence, and I was calling to the bull, here, bully, 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 here, bully. And what happened? It made that bull charge, and it hit the fence. And my dad, right about this time, comes and grabs me by the scruff of my neck. He said, what did I just tell you? What did I just tell you? But lame brain have to test the father. I had to test my dad to see if he really meant what he said. Don't let me catch you out in that pasture. Don't let me catch you out in that land, because it's dangerous out there. If you stay over here with me, it's safe. Stay over here. Don't have rocks for brains. Don't go out there and create a situation and create suffering. Don't. You'll create suffering for many. Don't do that. But those are some of the things that we find ourselves getting involved in, and we see going around us these days, even in church. We see people getting into a lurch, and they're getting into all these painful situations that they create for themselves. So God is telling us, before it ever hits the stroke of midnight, this New Year's Eve, 2023, because believe me, when we hit 2024, things are changing. You thought 2023 was different. Woo! We're getting ahead of ourselves, but let's go on. Let's go on. Let's see what he has to say. So he's saying, if you'll step into trust, I'll lead you to me to help you formulate a healthy reality, a future so golden that very few see. But the first step you must take is the righteous path back into honesty. You've got to choose to look at your heart, to get free from you, from the flesh, from the things that keep you earthbound, that keep you out of my rest, so that you can begin again to get free from the lies, from those things you thought were true but pushed you farther outside. Because this is the way back to the heart of the King. It's the way I must take you if you're to come back to me. And this is where we get into the hard, cold truth for some of you. Because you're so hell-bent and so arrogant on doing things that you think you know or knew. And they're all based on a demonic reality. And you haven't been taught, because the church doesn't know these things, how to discern between the two. One's based in witchcraft that's been created all around you. Purposefully, to cause you a lot of pain and a lot of suffering. Hi, Patty Ward. Let me tell you what's coming your way in 2024. The spiritual laws are fixing to tighten even more. You thought this year they narrowed? This has been a drastic change from what we're used to. And now other prophets the truth prophets are coming forward, and they're saying, oh no, you haven't seen anything yet. And that's what God's been showing me too, even before I went to one of my friends who's a truth prophet. She said, oh, wait till 2024, confirmation, there we go, brand new door. And it scares people, and it should. It should make you do a heart check. Saying, am I lying? Do I need to get free? We have been doing, and I'm not bragging to you, it's just what God set us up to do, to be a standard bearer in this ministry. He set us up to go through deliverance ministry all the time to keep people aligned. And I kept thinking, why are you having me take people through this? Why are you having me take people through this? And he never would answer me. But now he is. Now he certainly is. He's explaining every single thing that we've gone through up until this point. And now I'm never been so grateful. First of all, I'm grateful I didn't get my butt killed in that pasture that day. But secondly, I'm grateful that I've listened so far. I've tried my best to listen. And people, maybe you're saying that too. Maybe you're saying, well, I've done my best to listen. But the problem is that some people don't even know they're stuck in a unhealthy atmosphere with watered down religion, and God can't come near. He can't come near you. Because Jezebel now has permeated most environments on all 7 mountains. And that was the strategy of the enemy. And that was the strategy to keep you from coming near the king. Because Jezebel's the front runner for the Antichrist spirit, where Elijah is the front runner for Jesus Christ. And God showed me 30 years ago, and one of these, I think I put it up here and there, where God gave me this vision. He's taken me into heaven several times, not bragging, I'm just telling you my life walk. But he showed me this vision of Jesus Christ with his arms spread out and the wings of the Lord. He's an angel of the Lord, and the right part of his wings were clipped out. And I said, what's wrong with you? I looked at him and said, what's wrong with you, Jesus? What's wrong? He said, no, because these are a third of my angels that fell. And he said, and you want to know who's going to replace them? I said, I have no clue. And he said, you, people like you, my little Elohims. He said, there's going to be the third. They're going to come in to the very holy things of God. And you're thinking a lot of people would hear this and they think, oh, aren't you full of yourself? Well, I'm just telling you what he said. But I can tell you, doggone, I can sure tell you, every single thing from that point on has been one confirmation after another after another. And God's just taking me right on through. We're going out for the whole enchilada now. We're going on through. We're going for it all. We're going to finish this thing through him and do what he's called us to do. Will you? Will you? Because once 2024 comes in, as truth walks into our room or door, you need to make sure you're aligned so you can come forward in time. Or you're going to get stuck in the same old rut you've always been accustomed to. And I don't know about you, but I know God's doing a brand new thing. And I don't know what's so hard about that. For people, I guess when they're tired or when they're just sick and tired of being sick and tired, they're like, I can't take one more thing out. I can't, not one more thing. Not one more thing. And he keeps pushing you down this road and pushing you and pushing you and pushing you. And you're sick of hearing prophets like me. You're sick of it. Like, I'm not going to listen to one more prophet. I'm tired. I'm worn out. I feel browbeaten. They beat the hell out of me, God. They beat him. The devil beat the hell out of me. And God's like, why don't you get a grip on yourself? Come sit with me and let's talk about this thing. Let's talk about this. Have you ever God tell you that? Where he said, come and let us reason together. When you're at your most difficult point in your walk and you're like, reason? You want to reason with me? You want to talk to me? I don't want to talk to you right now. I want you to go as far away from me as you can go just for a second, because I know I can't do this without you, but just for right now. Just for right now. Just give me the second. But in his mercy, you know, he's so good like that. He comes right back in and he's like, Missy, come on, don't act like you've got rocks for brains. Come on, let's come talk about this thing. And so I have to go listen because I know he's the only one that knows the way out. That's kind of stupid for me to stay stuck and stay in that place when I know he's the only one that knows the way. I mean, that's like going to the zoo and doing circles around the elephant tent and not knowing how to go anywhere else in the zoo. That's just stupid. So God's telling you, if you want the whole enchilada, this is the time to shift gears and to switch into the brand new thing, the brand new move. And, you know, God doesn't care how big you think you are. He doesn't. Or how important you think you are, or how accomplished. He does not care. He does not care. Because in this new place, this new standard that he's implementing has credentials that everybody must obtain in order to go there. We all have to go there. And it's called a higher standard. It's called a higher standard. That's the credentials. You're either going to stay earthbound, and you're going to stay in your rut, and you're going to keep acting like hell, or you're just going to stay stuck. I mean, there's nowhere for you to go. Or you could change your mind about a few things, and you could actually invite him in to look at you, to inspect you, Nehemiah 2:13, and you could invite the king to come sit in your gates, and Nehemiah, 2 Samuel 19:8, and then all of a sudden, guess what starts to change? You start to change, and you start moving into this place that you never dreamed. And so we all must step into this place if we want the heavenly things. We have to. We absolutely have to. And if we want to walk in the new, otherwise, God's just going to work it out for a few. And he's going to unload his firepower too. And I want that. Definitely, I want that in this day and time because the witchcraft is off the charts. And so I find this to be very, very true. Very, very true. So, but for those who oppose the king, the Lord says your life is about to become a very, very stressful thing. And I would not want to be you if you choose to go that route. I'm just telling you, that's 2024 for some of you. Not me. I'm not going there. I'm going to go over here and I'm making myself prepared. By the way, you need to get yourself prepared too if you want to go there with me or with whoever else wants to go. But you need to prepare your little offended heart that gets offended over every little bitty cotton picking thing for nothing. And God's saying you need to grow up and get some thicker skinned over a few things because true love's unoffendable. If you know anything about God, he didn't get offended. He came across the most offensive people ever. He never got offended. When you see people through the eyes of Christ, you start really realizing what the most important thing is. That's relationship and loving people, seeing them the way he sees them. But you're going to start preparing yourself psychologically to have God put his finger on some things and to quit getting bent out of shape with your stupid spirit of religion. For those of you who think you've arrived or that you've been in ministry in the old by and by, which hasn't taken you anywhere except into a hypocrisy and a dichotomy, which makes everybody question the God that we are supposed to be serving because you're giving two false narratives or a false narrative of him. And this is it. I don't know why he's bringing this up, but I'm going to go here. He's also showing me before I even got on the rev today that some of you in leadership, you have backgrounds. Who cares? We've all got one. But that you're so prideful, you won't talk about it. Shh. Brush it under the rug. That's the past. Let the past be the past. No, how about letting it be part of your testimony? Using it for the good. So that other people can see, hey, we're not perfect people. We all got something. We've all got flaws. Doesn't mean we're being disrespectful to anybody. It's just that it pulls us out of this moral superiority to make everybody feel like, well, I could never. They make you their God because you act like you're so perfect. And God's like, you're not perfect. I'm the only perfect person that ever walked the earth. Get over yourself. That's why God's bringing judgment into the room. He's tired of all the hypocrisy. God knows some of us out here still are too. I've never seen so much of it. But let's move in. What's witchcraft doing to you? We're doing good on time. They're getting ready for Samhain. After you just came out of your high holy days, remember we just came through the 9th of Av, and which is a celebration time for those of you who are invited inside. You can only be invited into the upper dimensions of God. We teach you how to do that here at Ezekiel's Will. And you enter into C3, hopefully. You're invited in. You can't come in on your own. That's an invitation from the king. And by the way, so is each year that you enter into. You get invited in because of your obedience in the prior seasons. And then you come into the higher dimensions of God. And then as you go into the next year, you're tested before you go there between the testing between the serpent and the eagle. And then if you pass that test, you don't go back to Egypt because you didn't want to go back like a dog to your vomit. So you decide to move on into the next new thing of God. Then he can use you there because you've done everything he had as a prerequisite that year. You went through all your doors, getting rid of the old you, making room for him so he could use you in the new. But what that evokes is a countermeasure from the enemy, which is where we see what the enemy's trying to do to you. He's getting ready for their Halloween festivals, countering our high holy days to where they're getting geared up with all types of magic, innocent blood sacrifices, all their moon phases. They get their power from the dark side of the moon to keep you stuck in your ways of evil, man. Did you hear what I said? They release spells over mankind during these festivals, and it's purposeful because they do it over regions. You've ever heard of the terminology ley lines? Ley lines are connection points between covens. The covens serve as the hubs, and they can spread as vast as from one continent to another across the pond, if you will, from England to America. You can have a hub over there, a hub over here, hub in Asia, and they create ley lines in between. Now, what do those ley lines do? Those are travel routes for demons to get to you. Woo! There you go. Brand new term. So they're using these ley lines, these matrices, these grids that they create to release macro, micro spells over you. So Christian, unless you get your butt up and grow up, guess who's not going out and through? And you're not coming into the new. You're staying stuck in the old by and by. You're staying earthbound right where the enemy wants you so you can die in your sin, or maybe not sin, but it is a sin not to obey the Lord, but you stay the same. You don't come into the new because you've chosen to stay the same old you. So this new move that's coming, we're all walking into right now, it's all done by the Spirit. There's no room for you. Rephrased, there's no room for your earth suit. You got to die the flesh. You have to if you're going to learn to rule and reign. You've got to. And so this is going to create a whole brand new way of thinking, brand new paradigm. If you're going to learn to keep time, because if you know where Jesus sits, he sits in the cosmos. And everybody's thinking, oh, this is science. This is new age. No, it's not. No, it's not. I kind of thought that way too. And until I started trusting God to walk me forward in a few things. And so when I did, what I learned was that even though we've learned all these different components of science and of the zodiac and all the stuff that we thought were so bad, oh, that's man's ways. Well, guess what? Guess who created it first? The devil hijacks things. So God said to know the signs and the times, be sons and daughters of Issachar, knowing the signs. Hello, that's knowing yourself. That's your zodiac. That's the devil's clock, the devil's heart, your flesh. Know yourself, because if I know you better than you know you, I can control you. If I know me better than you know me, you're not controlling jack squat about me. I know what my trigger points are, and I'm going to pray up a few things before I come into your presence. But know the signs and the times, so that when you get redeemed, then you can learn how to tell time with God, and you'll actually prophesy the right thing. Ooh, that's a novel idea, isn't it? Because we got a whole bunch of fake prophets right now speaking a bunch of jack squat crap, and I'm just like, who has time for that? I am trying to get where I need to go. And we have all these people on all these shows regurgitating the same old thing. Not spending time with God, not finding out what he has to say. Or if they are trying to find out, they haven't gotten free enough from themselves, so their gifts are polluted. Guess who's speaking to them? All the demons in their bloodline. Their gifts are being polluted, and they're mixing the old with the new, right where the devil wants you. Confused, not knowing what to do. This is amazing today. It's amazing. So it really is truly up to you to come up and out so that you can be made new. Unless you choose to stay serving the false king, the one who was cast down onto the earth, who knows all about you. He's observed you. So then that brings me to the reality. I didn't mean to get off track here, but we're going to go here anyway. That brings me to this reality for some of you who like to pretend like the devil is not alive and well. That he's always just he's just something in your Bible that you talk about. That doesn't, it's just not real for me. No, it doesn't affect me. And then you go off and you act like hell. You're flipping somebody the bird at some light. And it's like, oh, really? Really? That's the spirit that just flowed through you. Do you have no more self-discipline than that? The spirit of anger. The spirit of retaliation, malice. It's exactly what I'm talking to you about right now. What spirit flows through you? Have you been delivered from you? But see, the majority of people they don't want to be bothered. People are selfish these days to me. They're very, very selfish, incredibly selfish. And it all comes from the ways that we've been pre-programmed about different things. About, you're always into yourself. You're into your phone. Be all you can be. Keep up with your peeps. Keep up with your social media presence. It's all about you. It's all about you. Love is others oriented. I don't know what God you serve. That's the love and the loving God I serve. Helping people to become the best them possible. Because then it all comes back to me when I get my eyes off me. Because I'm trying to send or plant good heavenly seeds to show people a loving reality. This is what could be. This is what can be. This is what makes you feel safe. This is what makes you feel fulfilled. This is what life's all about. When you help people come up and out and you help them get their lives back and they come out of the old by and they realize they don't have to perform for anybody and you're not their God. By the way, neither am I. We're not anybody's God. An act of humility where you try to get rid of me or you get rid of you. Bow down to a power greater than you. Realizing that he knows a few things about you or me. And he loves you enough to tell you the truth so that you can get free. But the enemy's purpose, the enemy's purpose from this point on will be a fight over the heart of mankind. To get man to sing a different song. To instill the heart of Satan into the hearts of man, the zodiac, the clock. That's the zodiac clock, the flesh, which are all built on the flesh or generational cursings, which creates the wrong time. So the enemy forcefully then causes man to become misaligned. Because the enemy knows that God has now poured his spirit out on all flesh, good and bad. So that the enemy wants to use to wreak havoc, to make this world look like they've gone mad. What do you think's going on around you? This is the chaos you're witnessing. Lack of order you see. These are the words spewing out of the mouths from what used to be holy realities. We used to have order. We used to have love in our atmospheres. And there were certain things love never did. It never said. And it was okay if you maybe had a few flaws or you didn't feel like you knew it all. You didn't have to. But you knew he did. And you trusted him. But when man chooses to do his own thing, that's proof in the pudding that man's in rebellion towards the Holy King. Which brings us to Jeremiah 6:16 through 8:7. And we're talking about the watchman. Wow, we're just now starting into our teaching. 39 minutes past the hour. You sticking with me? I'm really coming into, I think I'm crushing on Jeremiah. Because I can relate with this man. I can so relate with Jeremiah. He was a prophet after my own heart. Really. When I tell you this story, you've been kind of tracking with me the last couple weeks. I think 2, maybe a week now. But he saw a few things. And he questioned a few things about the church, about leadership, about the leaders in his day politically. He questioned a few things. He saw a few things that drove the sheep crazy. It just drove us up a wall. Like, what are you thinking? Drove the watchman crazy too. But this is what he had to say. He said, now, if you know anything about Jeremiah, he was crazy loyal after the Lord. He was a crazy loyal prophet. Absolutely nuts for the Lord. Where he didn't give a rip what man thought about him. He was sold out to Christ no matter what the suffering. Are you? Where the prophet saw the invasion that was coming. And he was trying to warn the people. Hey, if you don't change, this is what's happening. This is what's coming. There's suffering coming. You need to change. You need to be willing to change and be changed. But the people wouldn't listen. Because now, just like right now in America and all over the world, the sun was going down. Well, the time was getting late. And so their harvest was about to be reaped. Because remember, when God tells you judgment's coming into the room, or when the truth is coming into the room, judgment has to come right behind it. Why? Because when the king comes and sits in your gates, that means he's there to do heart inspections. He's trying to change a few things. He's evaluating what's going on. And remember when I told you, those who always choose to stay in their own ways, their hour of suffering is about to be upon them because they chose not to enter in with the bride. Doesn't mean that anybody's trying to and I think this is where I get the most of my backlash from the angry side of the church, and they are very angry. They're just angry people. I think they're miserable. Some of them are miserable people. And you can't even say they're members of the church anymore. They're not. They're part of the hordes of the enemy's army now. They've switched sides. And so they get scared, which I would be very scared if I were them. Because when you leave it up to man, and man starts getting alone with himself, and he starts thinking about, did you hear that lady on that broadcast? And she's saying that I'm not of God anymore, and I'm of the devil, and blah, 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 blah. And then they go flip somebody out for the lie. They go do this. And I'm not saying this, sometimes you just have bad days. Okay, good, fine. But I'm talking about a perpetual thing that goes on for years, where they choose to stay in the old by and by, and nothing they do represents God. It's always about them. And everybody's miserable around them. They have become the elephant in the room. And nobody likes to address it because the church has gotten so watered down that we have leaders who act like that too. Everybody always thinks that they've arrived and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, nobody cares. Get over you. I know what honor is. I do honor people. I honor my elders. I honor true believers. I honor true leaders. I sense the presence of the Lord when he's in the room. Trust me, I've been down that road. I tested the Lord in that situation before. When I walked in and I knew God was in the room. And I told God, I'm not doing any courtesy calls here. And I knew he was there. He said, okay, we bring that little spirit of rebellion up in here. Let me show you what I'm going to do about you. And he knocked me to my knees in humility in front of him. And the pastor did nothing. The apostle did nothing wrong. He just said, Missy, can I pray for you? And he didn't know what God had been talking to me about or what I'd been talking to him about outside that door. But God was certainly aware of my heart condition before I entered in and opened it. And he's certainly aware of you. Trust me. And it's time for you to look at a few things if you want to come out and through. Because I don't know about you, but I have really noticed that, when God's telling us that it's time to change, and I've seen people buck him. I've bucked him in my past. That's a very, very scary, scary thing. Because I knew when I did it, when I made the choice back then, I thought, oh, boy, I hope this doesn't cost me too much. But I did it anyway. You ever been that person, that stupid person? Because I'm seeing it a lot around me right now. A lot around people thinking that God's never going to do anything about your rebellion and about your disrespect towards him. That's called mistreating the king. And he's like, well, any good parent disciplines their child if they really, really love them. But back to Jeremiah. He knew the Lord as a watchman, and he knew that only the physician could heal this thing. Where Jeremiah saw the sins and the wounds of the nation, and he knew God's delivering power was the only way out to bring people back to their right mind so the nation could stay rightly aligned with the king. But he also knew there were so many caught up in so many demonic realities that they could have cared less what the Lord had to sing. They could have cared less. They had such disregard. They had lost their holy fear for the Lord because he hadn't shown up yet. Why do I care now? I'll just drink, and be merry, and we'll live for today. God's like, okay. All the while, darkness is coming your way. Boom, 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 boom. Out go the lights. And so there we go. Jeremiah then had been observing all the superficial diagnoses that the false prophets were giving. You've been watching this too? And he knew that their remedy was way off, way off. So off that Jeremiah, like the true prophets today, saw all the words given mixed with flesh, causing the spirit of truth to stay away. God has to draw back when you allow another spirit in. You're mixing the holy with the unholy. So there was no room for God's spirit of truth because man was too stuck in his ways. So they tried to mix new wine with old wine, thinking that that would give them away. They were trying to make their own way. When God clearly tells us our ways are not his, nor are our realities. And if we want to walk in heaven, then we must get free from our old personality, the zodiac, the earthbound suit. Because otherwise, like Jeremiah saw in his day, when all the religious teachers only looked and taught from the surface where the flesh dwelt, very purposely, by the way, keeping mankind on a shelf, out of firepower, where only few knew what God was truly saying because they were choosing the ways of the king. But the fakes, they never got to the heart of the problem. So like Jeremiah, like the truth prophets today, he began being used by God to call people back to God's word, teaching people to come out from the past, to go forward with God in our day, to do what God would have us do, which is to mature as the bride. Remember, the groom's coming back for a spotless bride instead of staying in the old by and by with the rotting corpses of flesh, which cause man's mind and thinking to become a complete mess. And Jeremiah's word released from the Lord was to help people get out of their cheap alloy, thinking they could become like the precious gold God meant for them to be. A lot of people are settling for seconds in this day and time. They're thinking, oh, this will get me by. I'll just learn a little bit of spiritual warfare, and maybe I'll go deliverance here and there. And you know, that'll just get me by. That's enough to get me by. Because I'm just too busy. I've got a business, I've got a job, I've got a family. So do the rest of us. Welcome to the real world. And if you want to welcome and come into your new reality, then you're going to get your butt into deliverance ministry and get serious about it and start getting free from you. Start dealing with you so that God can come out and through and start using you to get yourself off the shelf. Many of you wonder why your life's been so stagnant and why it's been so stuck. Because you refuse to come out of your rut and get deliverance, which is the key that pulls you into heavenly reality. So this time became the beginning of the falling away, because although God came with judgments, this is what troubled me, man. This really troubled me. But the people became embittered by them instead of searching their own hearts so that they could make a new start with God. And in the rebellion, their entire world fell apart. They were trusting in the wrong thing or the wrong spirit, always satisfied with surface religion. The Lord says, if you can't go deep with me, where I can build my church upon the rock that can keep you intact. Remember what he told Peter, upon this rock I'll build my church, and the gates of hell will not be able to prevail against it. And I don't know about you, but when I'm in the midst of truth, the truth creates a sense of security in and around me. Because when truth's in the room, you feel his presence. When it's on people, when they choose to live by it and abide in it and keep his ways, it creates this sense, this hedge. It's the hedge of the Ancient of Days, Job 1:10. And it keeps you intact. And you're not tempted to draw back away from heaven into the earth again, because being stuck in the earth are signs that you're stuck in the ways of men. Which God do you serve? Which spirit do you serve? Do you serve yourself? Do you serve the enemy? Or do you serve the true King of Kings? Which brings us to Colossians 2:8 through 23, where it talks about always guarding your walk with Christ. How many of you take it seriously in your walk with God? The truth, guarding the truth. Do you guard the truth? You know, I once, our chairman of our board, she's also a good friend of mine. She told me one time, and I've said this a few times to you guys, where she said, you know, Missy, as long as you don't get in between my relationship between me and Jesus, you and I'll do just fine. We'll be good friends. And I thought, why would you say something like that to me? But then as I walked forward in my walk with the Lord, and I had a few instances where that rose up, I've never been more grateful that somebody was so loyal to the truth. They're loyal to truth. Are you? And then God said to me, and this is what I need for you to always do in your walk with me. I need you to guard your walk with me the same way. Because in the end times, this is what's going to help you not to be led astray. What do I mean by that? Because in our relating with one another, we have a tendency, when we become familiar with people, to become attaboys or attagirls. Oh, no, they didn't mean that. Let me console you. No. Tell people what they want to hear. You tell them lies. Oh, no, they didn't mean. Yes, they did mean that. They meant that. They told you were overweight. Okay, you're overweight. Go lose weight. They told you you need to brush your teeth. You need to get your teeth fixed. No, they didn't mean to say that to you. They didn't mean to say that to you. Yes, they did. They did. They meant to tell you your teeth are jacked up. You need to get them fixed. That's probably not the nicest way to say that. But if somebody, you have to get to this place where you quit expecting people to console you and coddle you. I mean, and don't take this wrong, because I realize some people can help their circumstances. That's a different situation. But if there are things that you can change, that you've been wanting to change, but you're just too lazy to change, that's a different conversation. But being an attaboy and an attagirl, that'll get you lost and judged. Because then you'll start putting your relationship with man in front of your relationship with God. And that can't be. Not if you want to make it in this season. So, you know, if you know anything about religious systems, they always seem inviting. They always seem like, oh, this is the real deal. This looks like, tastes like, feels like. With the religious leaders seeming so persuasive to make you feel. Notice I said feel. It's all based in the flesh. But that if you don't do what they think you should be doing, pardon me, according to the religious structure they operate in, then you're the one with the problem. Notice how that flipped on a dime? It's persuasive. They goad you in. Oh, you're wonderful. You're feely, touchy-feely like me. We're going to be touchy-feely together. And then the truth shows up on you. And then you're rocking the boat. You're rocking the boat. We don't do that up in here. But you may be the only one keeping God first and having the true insight around you. See, in this day and time, you have to look at everything. The truth is void right now. I don't know about you if you're noticing this. Pardon me, no. Pardon me. And how do we know, though? How do we know? If a person doesn't like to deal with truth, they make you feel like you can't address the elephants in the rooms, I'm going to tell you to run. Run as hard and as far away from that environment as you can. Because most likely those environments are going to be stagnant. They're going to be void of truth. Because where truth abounds, so does freedom. When truth is in the room, you know he's there. You know he's there. And the scripture says that God is the way, the truth, and the life. He didn't come to bring peace, but to divide the truth from a lie. To help set people free so that we could dwell together in true unity. You don't have to explain and tell people that. It just automatically happens where truth is prevalent. And it actually creates a true peace. So if you continue to follow these types, you're going to substitute man's ideas for God's. And these are things that aren't taught in church. I'm sorry. I'm giving you old-fashioned logic right now. These are things that God brought into my spirit when I was writing this today. I thought, golly, Lord. He said, no, I want you to tell them that. Tell them that. If they want to walk with me. Because when I'm around truth, if you know anything about when truth is in the room, truth spirit, it bears witness with your own spirit. And you feel safe. And when I'm around superficial people, I see right through them. Right through them. And they know it. That's usually probably why I'm getting a lot of the hate mail and stuff like that lately. And I'm just like, who cares? They've usually been manifesting all over me or you, where you have to set boundaries. And usually you don't even have to say anything to them. They just sense this. It's usually Jezebel, by the way, where they pick fights over nothing to discredit you or discredit me or whoever. Because we see their true heart condition or their demonic reality. God shows up every single time. He allows true prophetic hearts to see. See, people know the demons on them. They certainly know where Christ is sitting. They know when he shows up. And they'll go ballistic all over you. Especially in this hour. That's why you've got to be tried and true. But when people are misaligned, it's been my observation that these people would rather stay outside of Christ's presence because it allows them to stay in sin. Rather than being accountable, owning their garbage, and entering in. And then they act offended against those of us calling them out, where they twist the truth because they enjoy that sin. Maybe they worship it. They'd rather go through and stay in these awful sufferings that they've created around themselves until judgment comes. Which caused their whole worlds to go south. And God hates it because it creates a double standard and it misrepresents him. But in 2024, God knows a lot of you are way behind right now in the spirit. And it's going to cost some of you. And I'm not backing off the truth. That's what God's telling me for you. But it's not too late for you to come out and come through. It may cost you. It may take you through some suffering. You're going to go in through anyway. What else do you have to lose? But at least you would step back into alignment at some point. You're fighting. It's going to cost you suffering because you're going to be fighting out from underneath the generational cursings because the darkness has caught up with you. And this is everything God was warning all of you for the last 4.5 years. Almost 5 now. He warned us. He gave us 5 years to get ready. Which brings us to Psalm 78, 1-31. We're almost done. Where it talks about the history of Israel. Where they mistreated God. I found this very, very interesting when he started explaining this to me today. Do you mistreat God? You ever thought that? Because I don't know about you, but when somebody mistreats me, I don't stick around too long. Do you? If it keeps going on and on and on and on. And you may think, well, I've been in church all my life. I don't mistreat God. But yet you walk away and you give the superficial face when you're in the presence of others to try to make them believe you're full of God's grace. And then you go home and you treat everybody else like crap around you. You're disrespectful to your spouse. You're disrespectful to your parents or to your kids. Not saying that, because children should, maybe parents are under stress. They are usually in this day and time, but there's a loving way to correct. Maybe you're rude to the guy down at the grocery store. Maybe you're haughty. Maybe you think you're better than people. Maybe you have moral superiority. Maybe you think you're God. Because the only identity you've ever been given, maybe you missed out on life. Maybe you didn't get to pursue your dreams. And so you're bitter. You're angry at God. And so you're taking it out on everybody around you. You're that Jezebel. Matter of fact, I have to tell you this because it also permeates into ministry. Behaviors like this. And it's gotten to be so mainstream now that it's like a normal reality. And it's not God. So for me, when this happens to me as a leader, not like I'm a tell-all be-all either. Trust me, I have my flaws. Ask my leadership staff. I have my flaws. I have to repent daily. And to them. Not that I go off on them all the time, because I don't. It's usually just in prayer. Get frustrated with spiritual warfare. But the truth is, because we have wonderfully loving people here. Very loving people, very real. Down to earth, busy. But when this happens, I start making mental notes, personally. Especially if they come in trying to be a part of this team or trying to be a part of this ministry with a hidden agenda, depicting their own heart conditions towards the king. Because my observations have been when people mistreat others or give no value to what God has to say or what his standards are, they're better. They have no understanding of what love is. So really, they're no better than the floozies or the drunkards or those that mistreat themselves at the bar. What do I mean by that? People who don't respect themselves don't respect other people. That's what I mean by that. So when you see people that are mistreating other people, they usually don't like themselves very much. And you may disagree, but I 100% disagree with you. They mistreat others because they have a self-loathing or a hatred for their own heart conditions, because the heart knows its own bitterness. So when we get stuck in bad behaviors, we go through these cycles of shame and guilt and I shouldn't have done that. No, I got to get free. And then we do it again and again and again and again. When had you just gone into deliverance, you could have gotten rid of that demonic reality. So people know when they're acting badly, because bad behaviors always find their way out. The Bible says that out of the heart flow the issues of life, or the true heart condition. You can't hide yourself. You can't hide your true sense of self. It's going to find its way out. God says your sin will find you out. That's sin. Trying to hide ourselves from him instead of being in agreement with him so you could enter in. This is what happened to Israel. Check this out. When God was trying to help them enter in. Because history always repeats itself. And it happened when God brought them out of Egypt or tried to save them, just like he did me and you, or you and I. But the problem is, are we willing to get free so we can actually experience heaven's reality? Which isn't a fleshly thing. Because Egypt depicts people stuck in their old by and by, or their flesh, their horrible behaviors, where others are allowed to mistreat them, or they're allowed to mistreat others. We saw that with Moses and killing the man. We've seen that with Jacob and his father-in-law. We've seen it all through the Bible. We've seen it in our own worlds. Who are we kidding? In God's mercy, he freed us all in his attempt to free us back to himself. But Israel was so stuck in the past, they lost sight of God's truth and their prior miracles that they once saw and that they once knew when they were making bricks with nothing but straw or what have you. And God provided all the way. He got them out. He delivered them. How quickly we forget just because we're going through a test. Thinking, God's never going to do this thing. The journey's become so long. So they forget the God they once knew. They forget that he's tried and true. And so they gave up on love, who always and will always be true blue. Do you? Which brings us to Proverbs 24:26 today. States that whoever gives an honest answer kisses the lips. Well, let me say it a different way. A straightforward answer is as good as a kiss of friendship. A kiss in our society signals affection, often sexual affection, but in many societies, a kiss represents an allegiance or friendship with no erotic meaning at all. It's an act of intimacy, if you will. And if you know anything about the Lord, when he makes covenant, see, this is the one thing I love about God. When God, and he constantly reminds me of this too, when he talks about covenant, and he's telling me, I'm obligated to keep my word to you. If I made you a promise, I made covenant. I made a promise that I'd always keep you. Now, if I tell you something through the prophets, some prophecies are conditional, but if you're doing everything I've asked you to do, guess who's going to get my word coming to pass in their life? That's going to be you. But if you're not, then don't get mad. Don't blame God when you're the one who got misaligned. And by the way, in America, I'm just going to give this free. The reason why you're seeing so many bad things start to happen is because people don't know when to shut their mouths when God has laid and poured his spirit out on all flesh. So their fivefold giftings are ignited. And then we have all these fake prophets running around, or fivefold ministers. Maybe they're not fake, but they're fivefold and they haven't gotten cleaned up. And so they're caught up in all these demonic realities and they're speaking all this negative stuff. And it's like a lot of us want to say, shut up. Just shut up. As rude as that is. Because your words have power and you're being used by the devil to take us down a different road. But by the way, we're not going to go. So God is calling the bride inside, the safe part. We're not participating in your old bye-bye. You may go through suffering. We will not. But, I mean, it's just amazing how people they just go with the sheep. They're a sheeple. Oh, no, I don't want to mess up my network. I don't want to mess up my plan. My. You got to get cleaned up from you, people, if you want what God has for you. Because you got to find out then by getting aligned with him if you're aligned with his will. That's how you find out, by getting delivered from you. What plan is of you and what plan is really him. But anyway, I'm going to leave you with that. That's a heavy word for a Friday, but you know what? I'm glad to get free. I would rather walk in the truth than be stuck in some demonic reality. Sorry for the dogs, but it's time to wrap up anyway. Go have yourself a great Friday, and I'll be checking with you on Tuesday, and we'll continue the conversation then. See you then. Bye-bye.